We're back.
Okay.
And we're back.
And we're back.
And we're back. So this
back.
is us. This is Nicholas. I'm Anna.
Yeah.
Welcome back to just another talk with us.
Conversation.
This is going various places, so we'll do that branding later. But thank you for taking the time to join in and sit with Nicholas and I again. It's been a week. How are you feeling this last week?
I feel empowered.
What does that mean for you?
It means that I have the ability to fight in ways that I've never been mindful of the fight before.
So tell me what prompted that power for you.
So much of what you said, God, just penetrated.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when I saw the visceral reaction of how I responded to coming to God again, and you sharing that, and then speaking truth to power. You know,
that was a
truth is
big
my
thing
word.
for you.
Yeah, and I've heard that before,
Yeah.
Howard, and you know, but it just hit different.
Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
I last week you were so anxious and so nervous, rightfully so, sitting down with me to have this conversation. And I was so impressed with the fact that you pressed your way through to sit down, even though you had so many emotions going on. And, you know, you could have been like, you know what, I'm not going to do this. But what I see happening as a result of you sitting down and us having that conversation, you were able to hear things in a different way, and you were able to look back on camera and see yourself like you got to be the eyes on the other side of your eyes. And I think that made a huge difference in how you interpreted things, how you internalize things, and your perspective going forward.
Well, first thing that's come to mind as I'm clenching like this, I realize how freaking dramatic I am. I make so
You think
many...
you're dramatic?
I was like, dude.
Yeah.
But I fully accepted it, and what I've been able to say by way of...
It's part of your comedy. It is.
Yeah,
it is. It's part of your comedy.
Listen, I don't mean it. It's just, oh gosh.
It's a part of who you are.
It's what it is.
Yeah, but I feel like you have been given a different set of keys this time, because you were able to take a look at yourself from the other side. You weren't able to just hear yourself, but you were able to see yourself and see your reactions, see your responses, hear your responses and the expressions that are going across your face at the same time you're saying the words. And I think that gave you a different set of things, a different perspective to look at, and something that can now help you to focus in on, oh, this is what happens when I say this. This is what happens when I say this. And it empowered you, from my perspective, to be able to make subtle changes where you need to make subtle changes, to make big changes where you need to make big changes.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I see.
What I see, and I think the biggest takeaway is you.
Me?
Come on now, listen. Listen.
I facilitate a conversation.
Listen, you're a coach, counselor, therapist. Yeah. You're intentional, you're insightful, you're spirit-led and driven. That's key.
Thank you for that.
For me, as I've shared previously, for those who don't know, because I've had these multiplicity of challenges that people don't normally interface or talk about, or it takes a special kind of person, as I've shared, Jesus Christ,
yes,
my camera,
yes,
has been my best friend sometimes. So that's been a non-judgmental listening ear, and I've been able to just vent and let it go.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So the difference is, and what's been happening over the last, like, pretty much honestly since December, I've been sitting with the kid in the seat on the other side of the camera. I've been processing and looking at his emotions and looking on him with compassion. The same way I'll have compassion and love for everybody else. I mean,
it's different when you've got to turn that compassion on yourself.
Much different.
Yeah.
Much different.
Yeah.
So it's that, and then coupled with you.
Yeah.
Having a trusted friend. I mean, again, you know, you're amazing, phenomenal.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Seriously.
I think you're phenomenal. A lot of feedback came to me about just the level of your transparency and the fact that you sat down and you had no qualms about just laying it out there.
You know
and
what?
I was so impressed by that last week.
In part, what I realized leading up to, again, I've been studying and looking into these challenges more intently because it's been, in terms of the sex addiction component, 20 plus years. I mean, that's a grown man.
Right.
You know, that's a child that I've raised, I've reared, and it's like something's got to give. And there's been a degree of fear that I've faced like I've never faced before. Fear of death, fear of other people passing, fear of me just living pregnant with the potential and never coming to fruition. All of those different things, and I realized something's got to give, but I also knew that I know this has been my calling. I mean, for you know, when I was dealing with this in 2001, when I felt the call of God on my life, telling me to call me to the ministry of word, and then I get to Howard and DC, and I'm hit with all of this different stuff. At one time, like the perfect storm is like, all right, devil, I see what you're doing. I'm gonna get through this, and I'm still. But it's like something's got to give, and I realized there are a number of different avenues that there's more of a demand. There's more of a demand and need for accountability, per what I've learned through ADD, and there's more of a need of again recognizing this is spiritual, more need for prayer. And I know that, you know, some people been put off by the F in Jesus. And
we were going to get to that.
And other stuff. It's fine. It's cool. What I know is that we have much more in common, and I have two audiences, so to speak. I have my base, people who have supported me and loved me.
Absolutely.
You know, y'all my tongue-talking, you know, church-loving people from all up and down the East Coast. Love Nick. So grateful. Nick's loving himself. But I have that, and then I have the people who I feel like I'm called to talk to. And they don't look and
talk. A little different.
A lot different. Some of them are the same. Some of us, especially, you know, if I'm talking to the stereotypical or quiet, in the closet, whatever you want to call it, choir boy, the one who's now doing pornography, Oh yeah, it's a different path, it's a different story, and I speak the language.
And you know, I'll say something about that because, and Nicholas, it was so funny. I did not even think about you giving our talk last week that title until you posted a video where apparently some people were very upset at what you entitled the video. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even break that down for people as we were talking last week because I knew the way
and
that
it came
you
at
were.
The end.
Right, it came at the end, but I also know you well enough to know what you meant, and it wasn't what people thought you meant. And so
it's flipping the narrative, but it's also having a conversation with my 75-year-old Jesus-loving mama. He's like, the devil is a lie. No, you need to check, you know. And I'm like, okay, Mom, let's talk about it.
Right. And that definitely
It's
opened up the door.
It's changing the narrative.
Yeah.
I mean,
it is changing the narrative. And I'll say
and when I say
else.
effing now, I mean facing it.
Right.
I mean, I'm not talking about say I feel that. I feel like demonstrably. That fear, no. It's either you're going to forget everything and run or F everything and run. or if I'm a face it, I'm a faith it. So I go in between both, but it's really about facing, and because I think.
But to face it requires abstinence from fear, and it requires a constant faith walk.
Jesus.
Coming face to face with yourself,
Constant.
moment by moment, sometimes, because sometimes we don't even have enough strength to do it day by day. Sometimes we get ourselves so deeply entwined in stuff that facing ourselves comes moment by moment. And it requires abstinence from fear. All of the things that you battle with. It requires abstinence. It requires faith. It requires courage. It requires transparency. It requires telling the truth, even if the truth is encapsulated in words that people don't like.
All right, absolutely.
Yeah.
It requires going in, digging in, and oftentimes I'm closing my eyes because that's what faith is. I don't have the ability to see, articulate, feel, taste, touch, but when I faith it, when I face it, there's a connection that takes place that transcends my temporary feelings that often have to get redirected. Like I part of the empowerment, me pressing my way and being in prayer with my grandpa this morning. You know, didn't feel like it.
But praise Jesus, you were there.
But yes. And I had this philosophy, this thought, like when I went to the club, it's like, yo, you was here now, you paid your money, I don't care who see you. Listen, I'm here. And when I'm at church or when I'm here. So look, let's go. I'm gonna stay right there, and like Jacob, I ain't gonna let go till you bless my soul. I got a little unction and push, and
a little strength.
And that's
just a little bit.
And God blows my mind.
And I mean, that's really, Nicholas, that's really what it's all about. It's taking courage for the journey, moment by moment, however we are afforded the opportunity to take that courage. And whether that courage is afforded to you by a prayer session with your grandfather, whether that courage is afforded to you by having a very candid conversation with your mom and explaining your perspective, whether that is afforded to you by reaching out to me and having accountability. Listen, I need this, and this. Wherever courage is afforded to you, that's the courage that you continue to take for the journey.
And one of my favorite quotes is, "Fortune favors the brave." And there's so much fortune, there's so much life, there's so much goodness in taking courage.
So let me ask you a question, because one of the things that you mentioned earlier this evening while we were talking was the fact that you knew and you know that there is a call on your life to speak the word and to preach the word.
I ain't say preach, but yes.
Nicholas, ain't nobody playing with you. Have you come to accept that? So if you grew up in the black church, everybody says that when you are called to the pulpit, you are called to stand behind the sacred desk because that's what the calling is. Have you now accepted that perhaps the calling is a little more broad than you?
Oh, I've always,
and you're always
been mindful of that. Especially when I was going through a time where I was really bitter at church, and I just, it was like, all right, it was really effing Jesus at one point, it was like, because I'm not getting delivered, and I got friends, and it's just bitter. And I saw, and sometimes still see, we talked a little about this last week, in our conversation, how there's so many different approaches to spirituality that don't even meet the church. And it's like, I get blown and I get in awe at God's intentionality. Look at how the brain works and and how.
I think we get so stuck putting God in a box because we can only see God as far as we know things. And if we don't allow our mind to accept that there are things beyond what we know, then we limit God's potential in our life to do.
Faith?
And there it is again, faith again. We limit God's potential. And so the more that
it goes against our rationale.
It goes against our rationale. The more that you accept that going against the rationale is okay,
this is
then
going
you
against the rationale.
allow God to be able to move in your life?
I've been fighting for a long time. It's like,
Yeah.
it's several things. It's like, God has been extremely gracious, and the way thanks looks for me and the way I would tell anybody else is, it's according to how you show up. And I have a good friend who I call Amber. Our friendship's being rekindled. Because she had a hard talk. She was like, look, I'm over your sorries. You just keep your sorries. And she just said, Nancy, I don't not love you anymore. Love is still there, but I'm good. I'm good on sorries.
What did that mean to you when she said that? And when she's saying to you, I'm over your sorries, what is she talking about? If you don't mind sharing.
Sure, yeah. She's sharing how I have allowed addiction to control, manipulate, interfere, not only in my life, not only in her life, but in things connected to her life.
Okay.
And her love for me is too much. Well, not the love for me, but sometimes you have to pivot relationships. Take a pause.
That's deep.
Yeah, and because I'm able to see things objectively, I said, yo, I get it. I understand.
So let me ask you a question. That brings up a good question. What responsibility do we have to the people in our lives to not wear them out?
When you say we, you mean anybody?
Yeah. Like, what responsibility do you have to the people in your life not to wear them out with your struggles, the apologies, and then the return to the struggle?
Well, for my friends, and she's a friend, but I guess let me think about other friends. It's not aware. It's not a time. When you're called to be my friend, or when you're calling on for some people, and it, you know, I can't wait till I get to bless your socks off, and, you know what I'm saying? Do some things for people, for real. So it ain't even, it's not a burden like that. It's conversation, and some people recognize. And also, what I realized, the conversation ain't for everybody. I have some frat brothers, I got some other people, and it's just like, sometimes it's just me, it's just straight silence. I can be saying, and as I shared before, I just blah, 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 blah. And I think because it's so dramatic, or because it's outside their norm, they're married, children, blah, 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 it's like, this nigga having another manic episode or something like this, or, you know, just listen, be like, you know, so, I'm learning to live with me, but it's not a burden for the friends. But what I'm aware of, what I'm mindful of is I want to be a friend, a better friend, and sometimes the addictive components had such a grip, and when I've been able to look objectively, close my eyes and look at faith, and now sit with the kid, it's like, I get it, I understand, I have compassion, but kid, you're not running my life no more. I'm a king.
So I think this is a good place for us to pivot a little bit and talk about who you are now, because several times in this conversation tonight you've mentioned that you've looked at the kid and you've reminded the kid that you're no longer that kid, you're a king. What does that self-identity mean for you? Like, what does that look like, and what does that mean for and to you?
So I would have never probably even explored any of this had it not been for these wonderful kids, they're my brothers for life, my mentees. And I've done mentoring programs, but I had 7 core mentees, all of which are still a part of my life. We still stay connected and love them, and they love me, you know, through my good, bad, you know, rehab and everything else. But I started an organization called Change for the King. First, as a result of challenging my students at Howard not to say nigga for 1 month. Say nigga, you gotta give them a quarter. And it's developed, and King became an acronym. And it wasn't until I said, all right, let me take a pause from loving on you, let me love on me. Where God showed me, like, Change for the King is not only king, God is king, but you are king.
Made in his image, right?
Made in his image, right? Yeah. Yep. So it's sitting with, I call him Wiley. everybody has I don't know if everybody has an alter ego, but kid is my alter ego, so to speak. And he is
he's a handful.
Adventurous.
He's adventurous.
He's many things.
No, let's talk about it. He's adventurous, and I'm making notes because I don't want to miss going back to anything.
He's a piece of
work. So
work.
let's talk about the kid. He's adventurous.
He's a piece of work. Yeah. So he's very adventurous, daring, fearless, sometimes reckless, playful.
Anything else?
Very sexual. He is stubborn, strong-willed. He's also a Taurus. Kid. There are many things that I'm sure that continue to come to mind, but
is the kid loving?
He's loving. We love a lot of things. Yeah, he's loving. Kid is loving. Yeah, for sure.
So how many of these things, adventurous, daring, fearless, reckless, playful, sexual, stubborn, strong-willed, loving, how many of those characteristics does Nicholas hold in conjunction with the kid?
Probably all of them, with the exception of recklessness.
So when you experience recklessness in your life, that's not necessarily you as much as it is the kid.
Yes, me following that energy and because the way I've been able to compartmentalize sometimes the kid from King is because I've always been a service-oriented type dude. I love kids. I love old people. Love service. Love all things. So I've served people. I've served community. I've served church. I know many of the people that I know as a result of places in which I've been fortunate to serve, and sometimes there hasn't been a balance to that. There was always giving, and doing, and because on one level, sexuality and all it entails has been compartmentalized. It was like, all right, can you go do this wonderful thing and you be on TV and you do that? That's cool. That's good. And then kids shows up, you're like, all right, now. That's fine. And here's the truth. Here's where I've come to recognize the manipulation of the kid. The kid is manipulative. Which is not King. Is he would show up and say, okay, now that you've done all this stuff, and now you got a good post, people gonna be looking at that post. Now the kid can play, and nobody even thinking about your kid. Nobody looking for you.
And you're very conscious of that.
Now.
Yeah.
But it's so, I won't say crazy, I'll be mindful not to say those words, but it's so wild how the mind, the subconscious, whatever, has been able to, addiction, has been able to get to that point. Very manipulative. And that's why, there's nothing greater than the power of thinking and thought, and that's why we're having conversations like this, and I'm coming to a knowledge of who I am, and the same thing is available to all of us if we sometimes just sit still and think. There's a quote that I love, and it says, "Watch your thoughts; they become your words.
That's right.
Watch your words; they become your actions. Watch your actions; they become your habits. Watch your habits; they become your character. Watch your character; they become your destiny." It starts with watching your mind. Watching your thoughts.
The
How
mind
successful
is a
people think.
battlefield.
They can grow rich. There are things in the spiritual, secular,
Right.
It is.
Right. The mind is
It's
a
beautiful.
battlefield. It's so many things. It's beautiful. It's curious.
Yeah, and I'm blown away. I think we were talking again in one of our previous conversations how science shares that we use only, I don't know what the percentage is, you might know, but a very small, minute fraction of
Some
the.
people say 10%.
And I believe it, given all the distractions and the distance from nature and earth, and you can say Adam and Eve in the garden, there's just so much stuff constantly when we tap into face. And that's the part. See this laughter and this joy I just feel from that comes? It doesn't require work per se, but it does require a walk or faith. And in my toxicity or in my desire to have it quick, fast, the thought is, oh, that feeling that you just got, the enemy's like, you feel you got, I got it right here. Pop that. And woo! Whoa! Yeah. Imposture.
Right. And the struggle is being and remaining mindful of that and putting yourself in a position to have accountability for what you know can turn you in a moment.
Yeah.
You are, do you see what you're doing? Do you see what you're doing? I'm watching you.
Accountability.
You are literally clenching
even though I
your
need
fist.
it, but accountability and commitment and those type of things we're still working through.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're still working.
But you're not the only one. Everybody's still working through that.
I wish I've heard that sometimes on different levels, and I think
Nicholas, everybody's working through a measure of accountability.
or a measure of
to
something.
Everybody's working through a measure
I
of
can't
discipline.
tell. And I think, and I think that's why one of my good friends shared with me, growing up. I was like, dude, I didn't think y'all had like problems or so forth, because another thing is I love God, and I was in pursuit of just being everything. And when I fell short, I just go hard. It's like, all right, let's just, But what he shared with me was that everybody doesn't know how to necessarily process it, or everybody doesn't have the courage to share or deal. But because my mother raised me, and my brother and I said God is always watching, and my number one audience was God. All this other stuff, cameras, everything else. This is extra sometimes. At the end of the day, cameras, no camera, in my heart of heart, I want to please God.
I think that we should talk a little bit about the way your brain processes stuff. Because one of the things that has always been consistent about you in our interactions is the fact that you are extremely transparent. And that's one of the things, like you said, that, if you are called to be in that season of life with you, that's something that you just accept as a part of who you are, as a bona fide part of who you are. You're going to be transparent no matter what. What I would like to know, what I would like you to share.
I would just say, no matter what, and I understand everything is for everybody. Trust me, as we shared before, this is light.
Yeah. This is real life.
Kill you.
But one of the things that I really appreciate about you is the fact that no matter what, I teach and I work with people to help them be empowered through being self-aware, through being socially aware, through understanding how that awareness plays into their decision making, into being controlled by self, having self-control, how that plays into being responsible in the way that you deal with life, how you approach life. And one thing that I am very fascinated with you about is the fact that you are very, very, very self-aware. I want to understand, because I would imagine, just sitting here thinking, I can think of all sorts of problems that we all have, but not everybody is able to be as self-aware. Number one, because they don't know how to do it. It's not something that, to this point, has necessarily been taught. How did you become so equipped to be so deeply self-aware? How?
What is coming to mind is something we shared, you alluded to a little bit earlier, that we are made in the image and likeness of God. And when I look at God and all that God deity is, I see myself. I see the intentionality of God, and there's a scripture that talks about.
Wait, we got.
And I've always been a deep kind of kid. My cousins, and
Yeah,
so,
no, we have to
that's
stop
too deep.
right there. No, that's not
Okay,
to do, but
okay.
we have to give, I think, for people who may have the opportunity to see this, who don't know you and know your background.
Yeah.
You grew up in church.
Yeah.
Church was a daily part of your life.
That I wanted, and I'll share now. People, my grandfather's a bishop. We're in Pentecostal faith, Church of God in Christ. God forbid if I don't say Church of God in Christ, somebody
Please
will
say Church of God in Christ.
The grand dome.
Right.
I went. My mom, I love her for this. Shout out to my family and friends at Allen Christian School in Jamaica, Queens. I mean, that was my foundation. I went to private school, and I loved. That was my world. And although it was a world for other people,
right.
I loved that, and I paid attention to that. I just loved. I saw the value of God, and I was able to have balance. So that was my number one.
Important for people to know that, because somebody who is listening to this that suffers with addiction in some form, substance use disorder in some form, is saying to themselves, how can this boy, how can this man sit on this couch, and I don't mean boy disrespectfully, how can he sit in this chair and talk so fervently about his love for God, his desire to please God, because those two things cannot coexist. And so I think that it's important for people to understand that from your mother's womb, this was bred into the very fabric of who you are.
Yes, comma, and however, when I began to experience the symptoms of what I now know to be bipolar, you say this child and so forth and ... child of God, who's met with, here comes the kid. I mean, it's been a journey.
Oh yeah.
It's been a journey. I mean, to understand, even put these two dualities together and recognize that I'm not kid or king. There's an element of the kid that needs to be loved and nourished and healed and whole.
Absolutely.
Be held.
Right.
Needs to have some healthy fun.
Right.
Which is cool. But I'm a king.
Absolutely. But
Yeah.
you are absolutely right. You are a king. And I think that it's important for people to understand that you have the benefit of that foundation from birth. I mean, shout out to your mom, to your dad, your parents, but that was the foundation that you were given. And it was a very strong foundation. The Bible talks about train up a child in the way he should go. And no matter what he does in life, Anna's version, no matter what he does in life, he won't depart from it. He may go astray, he may go a little to the side, but he, comes back. And I think that that's important to mention. And
it's
so,
the wooing and the grace of God,
absolutely.
I was looking at the video snippet, and when you shared how you reoriented your day, last Wednesday, and to come see me, it's just a reminder of how God loves me. Like, it's crazy, and it's that type of love that woos me. Like, yo, God, let's go. I love you too. I'm gonna put this stuff aside, and faith it and face it, because I know that your love fails in comparison to this stuff. I just gotta know it here and become intimately loved. There is an intersection. I know we're not talking about sexuality per se right now, but there is I haven't studied it, but there's such an intersection between spirituality and sexuality, especially when it comes to the intimacy and the knowing and the pursuit. God
gave us that gift. And so that gift is simply a mirror of what he desires to have with us.
I look forward to learning more about that.
Yeah.
I mean, studying
it's deep. And I mean, I haven't studied it in depth, but I know enough to know that that's what he desires with us and for us.
Yeah.
And he was able to extend that gift to us through relationship with people, whether it's your spouse, whether it's your friends, whether it's your family. There are levels of intimacy that he extends and allows you to have because that's ultimately what he desires to have with each and every one of us.
The cringe just coming in. I've learned also to pay attention to my emotions,
Yes,
my feelings.
because your emotions tell you exactly what's going on.
Yeah, I'm learning, and I notice, even breathing. I just noticed. So when I hear that, part of the anxiousness comes in because there is this element of, while I am attracted to females, there's still this element of same-sex attraction, and then it comes,
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that, because last week we talked about some of your encounters with men. God forbid we say that out loud.
Listen, I think part of it is also I'm 44 years old. I'm a grown man, and there's certain things I'm not going to. I recognize that some of it, again, is addiction. I'm not going to be. We're gonna fight.
Right.
We're fighting.
So what do you identify as in terms of sexuality?
I do identify as having same-sex attraction.
Okay.
I say that more often than not. So on the surface has been sex. That's surface. But relationship-wise, there's still a desire and love. I love scent of a woman. I love, I love companionship woman. But because there was an unworthiness, and there was the anxiousness that says, dude, she ain't even trying to give me no head. You think, okay, so let's do this. It's been the development of these energies and this stuff. So I recognize that most guys won't agree or whatever. There is a degree of estrogen and testosterone that we all have, and sexuality is very fluid. Doesn't mean everybody's going to be attracted to. There's just fluidity of sexuality.
Sexuality is very fluid, but watch this. I'm going to take you somewhere, and I want to. And it's okay because people will. You talked about unworthiness as it relates to being in a relationship with a woman. You didn't talk about unworthiness as it relates to same-sex attraction or having intimacy with a man.
You know what? Because in part, and I processed this, a couple of my friends, I will share that there are two guys who we're still good friends, both of them, and I'm grateful for them and the parts they played in my life. My first, I'll say my boyfriend, boyfriend. First, they're not even called boyfriend, but my first dude, I remember we first met, and he came over to watch something on TV, and her classic was like, all right, I was trying to make my move. He was like, boy, you don't sit down somewhere, like, we just chilling, watching that. But it was so natural for, it was like, okay, this is the day, we're gonna, but he befriended me, that's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't objectify me, although I was objectifying him.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to have a friendship with him, and as a result of that exposure, at that point, I was like, I could rock with a dude. But I didn't give that self a chance because male or female, I mean, the addiction was a thing. So we ultimately broke up as a result of that.
But let's talk about the sexual addiction.
Okay.
Let's clarify, I guess, a little bit. Would you say that your addiction led you down a path that ended with intimacy with a man, or it led you down a path that ended in intimacy with whoever was available?
So I will say,
and let me tell you why I'm asking.
Okay.
Because every conversation that you and I have had, without disclosing personal things, but the conversations that we have had have never really talked about that intimacy with a woman when you categorize it in the frame of sexual addiction. I don't know if you realize that.
I guess, I value, this is another thing. So if I know that y'all are just as
freaky as men.
yeah.
See, but you know. Let me tell you something. I'm trying
Let me
to
tell
get
you.
somewhere because I want to see
Had I
something.
known, had I been exposed,
I want to see something.
I value. I was like, yo, I value. That's why, sister. What's up, sister? I don't say queen, but I respect it.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
What I want to know is how much of you love your mother with everything.
I love my mama.
Mama's boy.
Whatever.
Yeah, mama's, and that's okay.
Yeah,
Mama's boy.
whatever it means, I'm cool. I love it.
But what I have noticed over the years as we have worked together, what I have noticed over the years is that, and it kind of makes sense now what you're saying, what you have experienced with men, I guess now I'm understanding that you really didn't experience it to the fullness with a woman because you didn't know women could be as freaky as men.
Yes, but prior to that, I also value my relationship with God. So it was like, we can't be
See,
freaky.
this is the crux of what I'm trying to get to.
Okay.
So because you value your relationship with God, you won't mess over a woman, but you don't see a man in that same sense. Is that what I hear you saying?
For the most part, when I was in a relationship with females, it's cool. But when we would have sex, I just felt like I was violating my relationship with God. So it just was.
In what way? See, that's the
That's
piece
what I'm
that
taught.
we.
That's fornication.
So you didn't think that you were fornicating when you were having sex with a man?
Yes, but I value women. Like I don't objectify. I wasn't objectifying. I didn't see you just as some booty and titties.
Yes, yeah.
Like I like the things, but because.
Have you ever sat with that? Like, do you really hit? And it's fascinating to me.
I think there's more to be explored.
Yeah, I think that's something for you.
There's elements of sexuality despite all this other stuff that I haven't sat with because on the surface it's been the sex.
Mm-hmm,
And it's been the drug. Let's call it sex, that's the drug.
And there was
The
a freedom,
lust is the
I
drug.
think, that you found with men that allowed you to have that drug to the ultimate levels that I don't know you necessarily explored with women because of the level of respect that you hold for women.
Not only the level of respect and they was fun. They was like,
Women were
if I didn't know it, I know it now. Let me tell you something. It's
But-
really the
but
power of
dude,
exposure. And
that's
it's
so
power of
deep.
exposure, honestly.
That
And
is
then the
so
fact that I
deep.
wasn't trying to get I wasn't trying to break girl pregnant.
Right.
I had a couple scares and I was like, look,
Yeah.
and I wanted to be a husband and, so there was just certain ideals that I had in mind. And dudes was just like, you was good for this, I'm good for that. And
This is so fascinating to me. I knew a woman who dated a man from a foreign country. She was not from the U.S. And she dated somebody that was a different culture from her, and he was Muslim.
Okay.
And one of the things that they believe is no sex before marriage. But the way that
no
they,
sex in the champagne room.
well, how that particular man circumvented that was he had same-sex partners because, and that's why I asked you that, because I immediately went back to that conversation, and I'm realizing that people somehow assign a value to something that lessens same-sex attraction but holds in high regard a relationship with a woman, so that you're not really messing up if you're having sex with a guy. You're not really fornicating. It's really not the same thing.
No, I mean, I knew I was fornicating, having sex, those things, but there were certain levels.
Yeah.
They went above levels, and it was like, oh, yeah, all right, yeah. So, yes, but when it comes to the value and esteem of the woman, like I was in middle school dreaming about a wife and my triplet sons. They was gonna be called Reginald, Reggie, and Reg.
Are you kidding me? Reginald, Reggie,
yeah,
and
those
Reg.
were my sons, man. Those were my sons. They may see me out there. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, my favorite shows, to this day, are family-related shows. You know, whether it's Family Guy or The Honeymooners, or you know, it's like it's traditional family stuff. And it's not to say that's something I bought into. It's what I wanted.
So let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everybody has a view of their future in their mind's eye. God grants us the gift of imagination, and he couples that with his divine will, so that he allows us to imagine the things that he has for us, so that we then, as we continue to use our mind and imagine, we have the ability through faith to move to where he's trying to get us. What do you imagine for your life in terms of relationship, in terms of children, family, the typical things that people are supposed to do according to society's standards?
That imagination has dissipated, and I'm learning to grip that, which is part of the anxiousness, a part of that I talked about the fear. One of those things. I'm getting older. What are the realities? I mean, early on, I would ask, you know, some of my homegirls like, would you? Actually, homegirls, would they date a guy, you know, who was attracted to a guy? And let's say attracted, let alone, you know, addiction, all this stuff. And it's like, no, you know. Do I believe there's somebody out there for me potentially? I'm nurturing that now again. Where I am right now in the moment is just loving Nick, working on Nicholas, Javon Gordine becoming the absolute best version of himself. Thank you, Butch. And pursuing that. And there have been times where I've had different realities, revelations, or rested with different outcomes. One is, I can remember being out in the water and just chilling by myself and just having such a peace, no drugs, and I was just like, just high. You know? Naturally.
Yeah.
Naturally. And saying, you know what, God, I can do this. Like, you be me and you, and I can enjoy I can see the world, I can love on people, I could be content with this. I mean, there have been times where I have pursued and been fairly successful with the no fat, which is the semen retention fast. And I've seen the power and the energy of those things, I've seen the results of that. But there have also been times where, this is where mental health comes in, where I'd taken my medicine, and at first I thought it was the gay cure pill. I'm like, and again, I don't recognize being gay, but I'm not paying attention to guys like that. I'm not lusting like that. And what I recognize is that it wasn't again, and I was able to, you know, see the value of this brother. Might have a nice ass. But I was like, this brother, this is my brother. This, you know, and I would pray for, you know, his wife and children and, you know, things like that, and see the value of the sister right here, not objectifying or anything like that. It's like that beauty and that oneness and holding on that. But my mind would tell me, this ain't real, or you can have ecstasy is real, Molly's real, that other stuff is real. Like this, let's get this real quick. But what I recognize is that the medication, it wasn't like I wasn't noticing, but it helped to balance my energy, balance my focus. So it wasn't this hypersexuality.
Right.
I mean,
which is
high
a
libido.
part of.
That's a part of it.
It's a part of, you know, having
bipolar, manic bipolar. Let me tell you a story. This is funny. Talk about medicine. I'm sidetracking just a little bit. The journey of medication and medical adherence, you know, has been a challenge. Continues to be something we'll. Yes, it's a medicine. Something we're working towards. Different medicines for different things, different types. Do you know they gave me this medicine whose side effect was elongated, prolonged erection? I was like, why would you give me that? Yes. It's been a journey. I just had to let you know.
You just made my breath catch in my throat.
It was, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That should have never been, and I mean, I'm not in a position I don't prescribe medication, but
I almost
should,
kept this. I'd be like,
that should have never been a consideration, knowing.
Crazy.
Yeah. Wow. And that's the struggle of dealing with mental illness. There are so many trial and error things that you go through in trying to find the right fit to balance everything out so that you are able to take part in life in such a way that you're not dealing through mania, you're not severely depressed, whatever the case may be.
And to the point where you're not having the potential side effect of this could cause cancer.
Right.
This could cause death, which is why I pursued the holistic medicine and those things that are, homeopathic, which incorporates the breathing and other things, but also natural medicine and herbs.
Which requires so much discipline.
I was doing it.
Yeah.
I was doing it.
And I'm saying,
when I had it was a depressive episode, and I need more.
Mm-hmm. And that's okay. Everybody has their own perspective about medication. Mm-hmm. I believe that God puts us in the places that we need to be to get what we need. And medication might not be an answer for you, but for somebody else, it might be the answer.
I've come to acceptance, at least for right now, that it's something that's needed. I do think about this. I think when I have my wife, is what I say, she helped me balance it out. She'll.
Are you going to ever allow, the Bible says, and you can finish the verse, I'm going to start it. As a man,
think of that.
So
is he.
Are you ever going to get to a place where you allow yourself to think in your heart about the potential of what could be?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a dreamer. I mean, I'm in pursuit of this thing called life, so I could fulfill my mission, which has been my mission my personal mission since 2001. To love God with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. To be the man I say I am at all times, and to reach my maximum potential, so that I can have maximum impact. I'm a dreamer. I'm just now allowing myself, as a result of love, renewing the love, renewing the mind, to dream again.
And so tell me 2 ways that you allow yourself to be renewed.
I first and foremost ask myself the question, do you want to be well? I affirm that I am whole. I often quote, not maybe right that I'm in, the sister, Mary, that wrote Our Deepest Fear. And there's so much light and power to that. I affirm what I believe. I heard God share with me one New Year's night when I was just at home by myself, just tapping in, and that is, I am God's son. I'm his beloved and his chosen king. I put that to the mirror and say, despite what I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing, I affirm that. And there's so much power in the I am, and that'll take, we can talk about that for a while. But there is power in that. And I this morning, most recently, I'm changing my alarm. I was thinking about it this morning. Fred Hammond, listening to Won't Let a Day Go By, Really Gotta Keep My Mind. Love it. renewing my mind, connecting with music and songs. I mean, there are many ways. Resetting my brain through breathing. There's a book that I'm starting to explore which talks about breath work.
It's a very serious thing.
It is.
People take it for granted because it's breathing, but no, it's very intentional. You know,
God is intentional.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
That,
God is intentional, and He was very intentional in the way that He created us. He created us to be able to heal ourselves. He created us for our bodies to be able to generate healing at the first sign of disease. He created us that way. And
side note, thank you all so much for your continued looking and watching, because, you know, despite this creation, we're again distracted and let's pop this Advil. And that's the part, honestly, again, as a child, that's like, I got to know more about this God. Thus, I got to know more about me. Because I don't say I'm God.
That your mom and your family gave you. Like, I really love the God that you got. And that sounds so crazy to say because God is the same. Yeah, He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. But the way that God is given to you becomes the perspective that you hold dear until you are able to create a perspective of your own. And if you are fortunate enough to be given the gift of a loving God, you can hold a perspective of God that will ring true even in your darkest hour. I love the God that you got.
And it permeates even in my darkest hour. That love, it's like, as you love me, you go out like this for me, God. Yeah. It tells me, reminds me, I am worthy.
Say that again.
I am worthy.
You are worthy.
I am worthy.
You are worthy. And not because you did anything to be worthy, but
Absolutely
because
not.
He extended that gift to you
Love
because He loves you.
Just because. You make me want to go off and worship right now.
Just because.
And this is why I recognize that it's been such a battle, because, you know, we talk and take this route and talk about Satan and Lucifer and our thoughts about what that is, and the interconnection of worship. You know, I'm a worshiper, you know, at heart, and I recognize that there's power in that.
And there is power in that. And there is power not only in worshiping and praying, but there's power in not being enticed to move when you don't see the answer that you want. I think of the story of in Daniel 9 or Daniel 10. Daniel was praying and no answer had come, like he was struggling. And after 21 days, Michael, the angel, came and said, I've been trying to get to you, to bring God's answer to you, because God heard you when you first prayed. But the king of Persia met me in the air and fought with me, and I could not get to you. I had to fight him, but I'm here now with your answer. God heard you and dispatched the answer the moment that you prayed.
Shift some things
I've
over here.
been
Come on.
fighting
Come on.
for you.
Come on.
And I think that holding on to that knowledge, first you have to know it, and you know it by reading your Bible. And then you have to know it. Or by experiencing, by allowing yourself to experience. I hold true, and I am fascinated by that verse, and I hold on to that story, because if the Lord can hear my prayer and send an angel to come answer me, but because the devil is trying to keep me distracted by the things that are happening in the earth, and so he's dispatching people that are now warring with what God has sent for me, and here I am on earth struggling struggling, minding my unbelief, being attentive to my unbelief,
That's so
and forgetting that I know that I know that I know that if I accept that I'm made in God's image, then I will also accept that God would never leave me or forsake. If I really accepted that.
You know, the kid is in my ear like, oh, that's good. we can experience this so much quicker.
Right.
This alternative.
Instant gratification. It's hell, isn't it? Instant gratification is hell. You know, I was
And I love it.
yeah, instant gratification is hell. And it's life was so much simpler as kids when you were outside playing until the street lights came on, or you were at the neighbor's house, or you were going to the lady in the neighborhood who sold chili. And now we've become so connected to our phones and our iPads and this app and that app, and I'm guilty of it. I'm totally guilty of it.
I'm guilty of not checking my text messages and my emails.
We're so guilty of trying to chase that instant gratification that we don't want to war for anything.
It's the renewing of the mind.
It's the renewing of the
that mind, that righteous mind. Donald Moore says this song.
Yes.
He says, "Hey, your righteous mind."
Yes.
Y-R-M. Yeah, your righteous mind. It's so powerful. It's so powerful. And
I think sometimes we have to have conversations like this that break things down to the very basics.
Yeah, because I have conversations sometimes with the kid and the king, and it's just by myself or in my head, you know. And, but this is part of a prayer answered, not just sometimes having the video, but just the dialogue. Because I was sharing with mommy, I was like, you know, by way of prayer, let's pray, because I want friendship to talk about these things. Because in actuality, the only times that I was given permission to articulate this type of depth is when I'm smoking, or I'm high, or drinking, or something like that. I have this shirt that says, "Write drunk, edit sober." Gives me permission to have that liquid courage and, you know, everything else. But again, when I begin to tap back into what truth is, it's a good reset that requires constant reset.
It requires constant
Let me
reset.
take the judgment. I felt the judgment there when I said
Right.
it requires reset.
And you said you felt the judgment, and I was getting ready to say to you, it requires acceptance of the fact that a reset needs to happen.
Let me tell you something. When I began to transform, I remember when I first moved back, I was out of rehab and I was just dealing with stuff. When I just...
Oh, no, you're fine, please.
When I began to take away the judgment of actions and say, it is what it is from a place of acceptance, but not acknowledgement, but not full acceptance. Not only, it was so liberating. And the more I do that, the more I take away the judgment of this is blah blah blah, and just openly share, the better I'm able equipped to love me tenderly and see it in its big picture.
I think that these continued conversations are going to be life-changing for you.
They are.
I think so. I think so.
And thanks to those who reach out and encourage me along the way. Because again, light stuff, but I would often say, I see you love me, but when you hear this conversation, you really gonna love me? And God was like, yes, and I love you. Right. And look at yourself in the mirror. Right. I love me.
Right.
Today.
Right. And for right now, that's enough. That's enough. Because the moment that you move beyond where you are right now, you have opened yourself up to anxiety that you can't control.
And I robbed, my boy Willie told me this last week when I'm anxious. You have robbed, or how do you put it? We lose the value of the wars that today brings.
Right. That's powerful because you're so focused on the next thing, so you can't give your full attention to the war of today and what you're supposed to learn and take away to improve for tomorrow because you're so focused on tomorrow.
The Eastern world, they call that mindfulness.
Yeah.
Yoga.
Mindfulness, absolutely. Absolutely. Being
All the same.
totally connected to the moment that you're in.
I mean, in fact, I'm looking in your eyes and look. I mean, again, that's the. I think that's why sex, the pseudo, all that entails is such a is allure because it's that pursuit of that intimate. It's pseudo, it's surface. But can I believe that I can have it working?
And I think that's, if I were to ask where.
I mean, again, it's been a kid, a dream,
Yeah. Are you familiar with Whitley Bibbs?
I heard that name recently.
Gospel singer, black gospel singer. He is also an Adventist pastor. He was my pastor in D.C. He pastored the largest Adventist church on Capitol Hill, Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Okay.
And he wrote a song, and the words of the song are, God placed a dream within your heart, and if you make a start, he wants for you to know that he will move every mountain, he will do whatever he has to do to help you realize the dream that he has given your life. And I'm going to send you the link, and I'll link it into this video for you guys as well. It's a very beautiful song. Whitley Phipps has one of the most beautiful baritone voices I have ever heard. And when you listen to this man sing, you really believe what he says because he says it with such simple eloquence. God placed a dream within your heart. And if you make a start, he wants for you to know.
Say it again, just a little slower.
God placed a dream within your heart. God placed a dream within your heart. And if you make a start, he wants for you to know all of your needs he will supply. He's always standing by. He'll bring the brighter day. So keep on climbing until you reach your goal. Just keep on striving with all your heart and soul. All things are possible, so don't give in. He'll move your mountains. He believes in your dreams. You just keep on climbing until you reach your goal. Just keep on striving with all your heart and soul. All things are possible, so don't give in. He'll move your mountains. He believes in your dreams. Whitley sings it much better, but it is the most beautiful song that serves as an intimate reminder that God gave you the dream that you had so that you can walk the faith walk with him to realize what he originally gave you. Just keep climbing, keep striving. You'll reach the goal knowing that with God, not aside from God, not without God, with God, all things are possible. Because he gave you the dream.
Yeah. Only believe. All things are possible if you only believe. Yeah. Only believe. Only believe. All things are possible. Nothing's impossible.
Impossible. If you only,
If
if you only believe. So I think that's a good place for us
in
to,
the camera.
but no, I think that's a good
Yeah,
place
yeah.
for us to pause and send
Choose to
that
believe.
part of the message out into the earth.
Yeah.
Choose to believe. And when you fail to believe, renew your belief again. Because
Say,
all
help my
things
unbelief.
are possible. Help my unbelief.
Kirk got the song. Kirk Franklin. Wanna believe. He said, I'm having a hard time saying It's called Help Me Believe.
I don't know that song.
Help Me Believe. Help me believe.
Maybe I know it by something else.
Wanna believe. I think it's from Hello Fear album.
Okay. All right. I'll listen to it, and we'll tag those songs in these videos.
Yeah, you tag me, because I live on this edit thing. I gotta you do podcast.
All right.
We'll get it.
We'll get it. We'll get it. So
We
we're
got
gonna sit on
Speaking of
this.
affirmative.
We're gonna sit in this place again as often
Yeah.
as we get the
Thank
opportunity.
you so much.
You have to good thank you.
Yo, I ain't got no money like that right now, right? If this has blessed you, if this has
Oh my
spoke
God.
to you in any kind of way, I need you. Just pay it forward on my behalf until we get in it. Walk with me and sow into healing you, healing me. Miss Anna Omamaro.
Oh my God!
I've been
You
practicing.
got it right.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that was
I almost
fluid.
had to say, oh my God, you got it.
Yeah, so I taught. My name is Anna Daniels Omamaro, and I taught
Yeah, it was
people.
Tawan.
Well,
There you
you know,
Okay.
in China, and I had to bring back a piece of China with
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
and I brought back Anna.
Yeah.
But I taught people to say Omamaro by singing "Oh My Darling,"
Yeah.
and it kind of just flows that way. So.
Anna, how can so I generally tag you,
Mhm.
but is there a website for those who might see my stuff?
Oh my God! No, you did just
Yeah,
put
what
this
is it?
on
What
me.
is it? What's your site?
HealingYouHealingMe.org.
Yeah.
We are on all social media platforms, and this is what we do. We work with people to teach them self-awareness and to teach them things that will empower them to thrive in their life, no matter where they are. And we start at the basics with self-awareness, because you can't begin to know anything else until you first know yourself. And if you can know yourself, then you can grab hold to self-control and master it. Then you can become aware about the people around you. And then you can make great decisions, and you can have responsible relationships with other people. But it starts with being self-aware. So that's what we do. That's what we do.
Great job. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. I'm proud of you.
I love you.
I love you. So we will see you again next time.
Thanks for
I don't
watching,
know when
listening.
next time will be,
Appreciate you.
but I imagine that throughout the summer and into the fall, we will find ourselves here, because I think that this is a new level of accountability for you. You know, you are very good at taking the camera, captivating what you need to captivate, and then dropping it off and releasing it. But sitting down with somebody
That's what we do.
tethers you
Yeah. Relationships.
to what?
Can we call it something else other than accountability?
We call it whatever you want to call it, whatever you
We're
need it to
just-
be. We can call it the local. I don't care what you call it.
Just talking something else.
Okay, very good. We're just talking.
That's it.
And whatever works for you, as long as you show up when you need to show up.
I hear so
that's
much
it.
of, I'm sorry, there's so much of Change for the King. I had no idea, and we're closing this. King is an acronym, as you know. And K
Tell the
for-
people what it is.
I'm gonna say this because I saw something that mimicked this, and it was one word that was off, and I was like, you know what, God, this is ADD part of me. It's like, Nick, you got to do certain things to make sure you protect your intellectual property. So God gave it to me in the shower one of these times when I was at home, somewhere between 2011. But anyway, K is for knowledgeable and accepting of self. I is intelligent and wise. N is for noble in character. G is for gifted for global impact. I am king, where we empower, expose, and this is what I was about to say, we educate, and educate comes from educare, we draw out. And long story short, this talk, accountability is drawing out.
Right.
It's drawing out.
Right. And Nicholas is going to be doing more with Change for the King.
I am.
In the days and weeks to come. And I believe that. I've always believed that from the moment you
journals
shared
and
that
all
with
that.
me. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so be mindful,
Yeah.
be
kind.
to yourself. Don't remain in a place of judgment against yourself because that works against you. And always speak truth to the powers that seek to take you
Well, you better think.
Think.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you, Nick. Love you. All right. Something went off. I don't know what it was, but something clicked off.
Such a natural flow conversation. Oh yeah, my battery's not my battery, my charge.
Okay, so yours is good. Oh, it was the camera that went off.